Before we start, I want to kindly thank Saintharrison for buying me a cuppa since the last video. It's always appreciated. Merry Christmas. Now, when 2021 ended and we went into 2022, who would have known it'd be such a backwards and quite honestly fucked up year? It's also been quite funny, as we're going to see over the next probably half hour. But anyway, let's not dilly-dally, let's get straight into January. The year started when some storms hit the UK which sent trees flying and rain falling everywhere. We really won't have a good summer. This all must be down to climate change. Watch out for that bin. A Chinese spy was found in Parliament, one which was linked to the Labour Party. Imagine that, a communist linked to the Labour Party. I wouldn't have put any money on that. The gimps who chucked the Coulson statue were let off by the courts after the clearly biased jury said they didn't do nothing wrong. Get down to Mandela's statue now. Actually don't. The rules are different for us. A volcano went off under the sea near an island in the east. I'm not going to begin to pronounce the name of the place, and although it was very dangerous, it did look cool. Surgeons, taking a break from turning boys into girls, completed the first pig-to-human heart transplant. At last, some proper science. A declaration was made by 5 nuclear warhead owners, including Russia and the US, stating that they'll never be used or threaten to be used. That's nice, we'll have a war-free, peaceful year with no nuclear threats. The Beijing Olympics began amongst controversy about the human rights over there. Given how the country's been locked in their houses for 2 years, there was a big turnout, but once it was over, they'll be back in their houses, under fear of death. Hopefully the next big world event, the World Cup, won't be as controversial. The Queen had her Jubilee Day, although there won't be any celebrations till the weather warms up in the summer. She does look healthy for her age though, doesn't she? Prince Andrew paid off a few million to settle a lawsuit over a suspected nonsense. Did he pay her to go away, or was it a payment out of guilt? We'll never know, but what we do know is this dress won't be good for his mum. Diversity kicked off the year when Zuma, a footballer, kicked a cat across a room instead of a football. He was condemned by almost everyone, except black people. He wasn't imprisoned, but got a fine. Should have got a plane ticket instead. High winds hit the UK, which meant endless news videos of people falling over, people driving near the sea like idiots, and you can't miss the bins falling over either. With all this crap weather, I doubt we'll have a nice summer. Well, we didn't see this coming. Russia began an offensive on Ukraine by striking mainly the east, but also Kiev, Odessa and other areas too. The whole point was that Russia was unhappy with the NATO expansion, which was part of the deal between Russia and Ukraine. The war, even now, is still going on and there is no clear winner. The only losers, however, are the people in both countries, the soldiers, and Europe as a whole due to money being spent, weapons being spent, and most importantly, energy supplies being cut along with other sanctions, which have hit Europe harder than it has Russia. Zelensky has been on the media tours asking for help and he has been sent billions. The worst part of it is that a peace deal was also scuppered by the UK and US early on. I wonder why that could be. One of the highlights though was a tower that almost fell onto a Holocaust memorial. Luckily it didn't though, that would be anti-Semitic.
After 12 years of Tories, the country's on its knees. Railways on strike, nurses on strike.
It's finally here, racing up the charts, higher than a penalty from Harry Kane.
I can't feel my toes.
Baby, it's cold inside.
Now that's a cost of living Christmas. The album you simply can't afford to buy.
Driving's too expensive.
A collection of the not-so-hottest Christmas tunes ever recorded.
We're using a loan shark this Christmas to check the thermostat is working.
Festive favorites like
You may get a payment of £600.
songs to warm the cockles of your heart, as well as those other hard-to-reach areas.
Send a bailiff and go and get your flat screen TV.
And by popular demand.
Will Rishi be gone by Christmas? Will Rishi be gone by Christmas?
Come on, guys.
You can't buy Now That's a Cost of Living Christmas in the shops. But then again, you can't buy anything in the shops.
Jesus Christ, look at that price.
The perfect soundtrack to this year's budget festive dinner.
Pet dog roasting on an open fire.
Plus,
And Mary's boiler, Jesus Christ, turned off. On
get your
Christmas
copy today before the price doubles again.
Can't afford a holiday now.
And even a word from the artist formerly known as Prince.
Good King Wealthy won't pay tax on over 15 billion.
I'm in debt over Christmas, paying off the interest forever.
Even Granny gets a mention.
Grandma won't go home because she's freezing.
Plus,
She's
for
asked if
every
she
copy
can
sold,
stay
£10 million goes to your energy provider.
It was only a windfall tax. Just
Now
a
that's a
little-
cost of living Christmas. The album you simply can't afford to buy.
Baby, all I want for Christmas is fuel.
Terms and conditions apply.
Well, not much happened in March. Southend, home of theme parks, Londoners on holiday and beaches full of burkers, became a city, as it was a dying wish of the MP for Southend, who was killed by his own policies the year before. Oh, we do like to be beside the seaside. Ernest Shackleton's boat the Endeavour was found, and as you can see from the video, has been pretty much preserved by the seabed. I wonder if they'll ever find that secret boat off the coast of Norfolk later in the year. Probably not. Nazarene Ratcliffe made it back to the UK after being imprisoned by Iran. The media were overjoyed she was back, and despite the efforts of the UK to get her back, she couldn't look any more miserable for someone who was actually Iranian, going home knowing she'd been nicked and then getting nicked. But of course, none of that was her fault.
20 Christmas decorations. First, ethnically accurate Jesus goes right here next to Father Mary and Mother Josephine, followed closely by the 3 genderless wise people on their bird scooters, Tig Notaro for some reason, and of course the little drummer them, because God forbid we call a boy a boy.
Dad, what are you saying?
I don't like what the world is! I'm white! When's it gonna be our turn?
The Large Hadron Collider reopened in Switzerland. I'm sure this won't mean that a small time portal will open up that involves a famous rapper coming out with some anti-Semitism. Surely it's not this powerful. A national insurance rise was announced to help pay for the NHS, in which you'll still have to wait 18 months to have an operation, if you're not already dead, to pay for the police to arrest you for insulting troons, and your pension you won't ever see. In news that won't shock anyone who's ever watched something with him in, Tim Westwood was being done for sexual harassment. Now look at him, I don't think he's the type. Do you? Pretty Useless announced a deal to send illegal immigrants to Rwanda instead of where they came from. Cue lots of crying, laws demanding that it's stopped as it's not legal, turns out it is legal, and people trying to stop the deportation flights by blocking exits to the immigration centres. All very exciting, but they're only going to take 300 a year, and in return we get others instead. So utterly fucking pointless, as they're not going anywhere. Someone decided to take matters into their own hands later in the year by throwing a homemade device at a centre. All very stupid of course, and luckily only hit a wall, before setting up a Saw film-like contraption to kill himself. A Conservative MP, instead of arguing what we've already seen, got bored and decided to watch mucky videos in the Commons. Given that anything that comes out of there is a load of wank anyway, who really cares? You know what we've not had for a long time? Art reviews, and here's one from Chief Moody.
I have seen many pieces of art in my time, but this just takes the cake. Here we have a wall with graffiti on it. Now, people may call it graffiti, but you know what? I call it art. Actual, genuine art. And here we have black text or black graffiti or actual art on the wall that reads. Now, some people actually might look at this and think, well, maybe there's a bit of a contradiction here, but you know what? I think there's a double meaning here. You can either look at it as Poles fuck off, or you can have a look at it and it may read to you as fuck Poles off. Again, it just gives the whole double meaning aspect to it. Now I know there's maybe people thinking, well, it's just black text over a wall, there's not really much else going for it. But you know what? There's the old saying here, less is more. The less there is with a piece of artwork, the more artful it really is.
Ah, monkeypox. Was it the new COVID, or was it the new AIDS? Well, it mainly affected gays and people who hang around with them, like the poor dog who got monkeypox from living with a few shirtlifters. Despite it predominantly affecting the rainbow crowd, mentioning it made you homophobic. And because it also affected black people, they changed the name from monkeypox to mpox. Mainly because monkeys are intelligent and didn't want to be associated with the other kind of... No, I'm not saying it. An earthquake in Shropshire measuring 3.8 rocked Shropshire, causing pounds worth of damage. Earthquakes here are more common than you think, but they never happen in places that you want them to, like Rotherham, Birmingham or Luton. The people there can make the buildings shake in other ways. Ukraine won the Eurovision, which came as a surprise to no one, even though their song wasn't that good. But how will they host it if there's a war on? Well, the UK, who bizarrely came second, will host it on their behalf and pay for it too. Like we seem to be paying for everything for them. Boris was being forced to resign, but he said he's not going anywhere. Good on him, I think he'll stay. The Elizabeth line opened after massive delays. Named after our good long-running Queen, may she use it for many more years. Charles opened Parliament on her behalf, however, as she was too busy on her new train line. One day he'll be king and this will be his job every year, but he's got a long time to wait. And here's an art review from the Yank, Humber Talk.
With the tandem headlines of both monkeypox and Christian nationalism being the hot topic on most everybody's minds, I thought I'd give my 2 cents. It wasn't long ago at all that Christianity, the church, was focused on producing things like this, or this, or this. But nowadays, unfortunately, it seems to be hell-bent on producing things like this, and this, and who could forget this? Now, I don't want anybody to think that I'm just crapping on Christians. That would be an easy assumption to make given what I'm going to say here and the fact that I myself am not a very religious person. But I have a lot of Christians in my inner circle. Many of my family members are devout, and I love them. And I love Christianity. But as it goes with people who you love, every so often a gut check is in order. And people who are frankly gullible rubes, I know that sounds harsh, can be easily suckered by something that is allowed and permitted, which Christian nationalism certainly is. It's an off-ramp. It's a diversion, a distraction. You are not being attacked because of any kind of ideological belief or religious belief you hold. I hate to say it, but those things are transient and they change over time. It's just a fact. What does not change and will never change is the skin that you are wrapped in and the ancestry backing it up. And that is the basis on which you are being attacked. So that can only be the basis on which you defend yourself. The beautiful thing is that we all want to get back to this. I want to see this everywhere. But in this case, one must follow the other. And by that I mean a white awakening, a racial awakening on the part of white Europeans and people of white European descent is what has to necessarily precede a reformation of the church and an overhaul of it from the ground up. Monkeypox is a biblical plague. I don't know how else you would describe it. And the leadership of the church can't bring itself to even say anything about that. And if they do, I haven't seen it, but I'd wager that it's just mealy-mouthed nonsense that isn't aimed at anybody in particular, certainly not the pedophilic, bestial sodomites who are its pretty much sole spreaders and enjoyers. So let's get back to this by demolishing this.
In June, a 50-year war ended between Denmark and Canada over an Arctic island. How did they solve it? By drawing a line down the middle, like Steptoe and Son did in that one episode where they halved the house. In Nigeria, a Christian church was attacked by the usual suspects when it comes to things like this. Naturally, no one cared, because it was a church and not a synagogue or a mosque. As everyone was setting off on their holidays, there were flight delays as airlines struggled to fill vacancies due to the pandemic. Who could have foreseen this? It's not like we didn't tell them. The Queen celebrated her Jubilee and the country all enjoyed the pomp and ceremony associated with it. Everyone loves the Queen, except Meghan, and we're all looking forward to her next celebration, as she'll be around for years. The wreck of a 1682 Navy ship, which was found in 2009, was finally revealed to be off the coast of Norfolk. It was kept confidential to stop people from diving down and stealing things. But as the MOD have already removed anything valuable, it's open season for you divers. At this point, the cats went on strike, like everyone else in the country. and they demanded that I didn't use their pictures to signify what month we're talking about. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that I ran out of time and couldn't be asked. As July came, so did female footballers and lesbians around the country as the England ladies team won the Euros. Whilst no one really cares about ladies football and everyone is being forced to like it, the nice aspect was that the team was mostly homogenous. Even though diversity wasn't needed to win, there were still articles saying how the team was too white. Expect that to change come the Ladies World Cup next year. The usually peaceful Japan made the news as well when its ex-leader was assassinated whilst giving a speech. He later died in hospital. Boris, who won with a massive majority, decided to step down after everyone in the cabinet was leaving. Partygate took its toll and it meant a new PM had to be found. I wonder who they'll get. Hopefully not Liz Truss, as she's really dull. The heatwave across Europe and the UK was also still making news. You'd think we'd never had a heatwave before as temperatures reached into their 40s. Yeah, it was too hot and come December we'll be moaning about how cold it is. Of course, the entirely natural phenomenon of weather was all put down to climate change. And you know what that means? More money! Now this art review was meant to be out at the beginning of the year, but unfortunately the maker, Calibri, got yellow fever, so I wouldn't let him use it. But now he's overcome his yellow fever, so now here he is with his art review.
Observing the piece shown here would at first remind one of a racist caricature belonging on a takeaway box, but if one looks beyond the surface, something much deeper is on display here. Look, for example, at the skin tone. The typical chink yellow that usually accompanies such caricatures has been replaced with the pinky hue of the white man. Which begs the question, what really separates the Chinaman from the Anglo-Saxon? Is it the wide eyes, protruding teeth, and yellow skin? Or is there something else there? Maybe, if the Live Leak logo appeared in the corner of your vision at work, or you had a proclivity for eating domestic pets, perhaps you would discover that we all, in fact, have a bit of China in all of us. Maybe that is a statement being made. But really, I think this piece speaks for itself. Regardless of your perspective, there is something to be learned here, something to be appreciated. And that, my friends, is the true meaning of art.
In August, while we were still sweating in the heatwave, the Muslims were sweating with excitement as one of them stabbed Salman Rushdie, author of the Satanic Verses. He didn't die, but being stabbed is still not very nice. Earlier in the year, cinemas in England were forced to pull a film called Lady of Heaven due to pressure from Muslim communities, with lots of them turning up to cinemas, screeching into their megaphones. Another year passes, another year they lose the title of religion of peace. Pakistan also had a wash in August when it suffered really bad flooding. Despite being a rich country that can't install sewers, they asked the other richer countries to help them out, and like good boys, all lined up to send money. At home, due to greed and cutting off our own hand, energy bills increased, beginning protests and genuine worry that people will have to choose between eating and heating. Still, who wouldn't want to pay more for their energy if it's a middle finger to Putin, you know? And here's a Christmas message from a nice old Russian lady.
У них 85 полов вместо мужского и женского. У них публичные дома для зоофилов. Они узаконили педофилию. Они теперь в стадии рассмотрения закон о признании нормы инцеста. Ребенок, например, в ЕС в 3 года должен выбрать себе пол. Если ребенок себе пол в 3 года не выберет, значит ребенка из семьи ювенальная юстиция изымает и отдает их в семьи гомосексуалистов.
September trundled along and Liz Truss, one of the dullest people in the world, was made Prime Minister. She got to work by hiring a diverse cabinet and came up with a new financial package to help people on lower wages. The media and think tanks hated it, and it caused such a fuss. There was a crash. She gave up by the end of the month, which meant a third PM was on the way. At least she got to meet the Queen, who was so disappointed with Liz Truss that she decided to die. A few days of grieving, people being arrested for throwing insults at Nonce Andrew, skipping the line to visit her coffin, and people getting a day off work. Charles is now king, which, given how tied to diversity and climate change he is, should prove the next few years will be worse than if Liz just held on a bit longer. Damn you, Truss. Now this year, PA has had its busiest year since it started. But rather than talk about it, Let's just watch it instead.
I'm happy with it. You can really think. They're in heaven now. They're in heaven now.
It's absolutely disgusting.
October arrived and we got our third Prime Minister of the Year, someone who would never have got in if it had been down to the public vote. I wonder why. Rishi got straight to work being a Conservative by giving lots of money to climate change, pondering an amnesty on illegal immigrants and sticking his tongue up Zelensky's arse. He's also a friend of the small state in the Middle East. At least it ain't Labour. Twitter's acquisition by Elon finally took place, and despite lots of promises that people would leave, they didn't, except Elton John. He reinstated Trump, Andrew Anglin, the PA gang, almost, and others too. He also nuked lots of nonsense and has been slowly releasing info about Twitter from before he took over, to show how controlled it was not only by the left, but also the FBI. Imagine that. He is due to step down though and let someone else run it soon, so enjoy the ride while it lasts. Do you ever watch people's pet videos and think, I wonder if my dog or cat will do that? Well, I watched this to see if my cats would be as stupid. Let's find out. No, my cats aren't retards. November saw the start of the World Cup. Now, I know we're not football enjoyers, especially in winter, but anyway, what made this more entertaining was the fact it was held in Qatar. Land of hating gays and backwards rights. Yes, lots of people were killed when making the stadiums, but you know, you take your chances. Ultimately, the World Cup was won by Argentina in the final against France. And unsurprisingly, diversity didn't win it for France, but the homogenous Argentinian team took the trophy. Well done. Also in November, The most important part of the 2021 census results were released, and they were quite depressing, but also unsurprising, as now the UK is just 74.4% British, which is about an 8% drop. Now, Nigel Farage wound people up when he said that London is no longer majority white, and whilst those who identify as white is above 50%, that white percentage isn't all native Brits. That accounts for the other Europeans that are currently living in the city, something the fact checkers had to get on. So yeah, 2066 is looking a little bit hopeful. If only we had someone on our side who has a massive platform to talk about how white lives matter, amongst other things. Like this fella, Kanye West, also known as Ye.
I think it's dangerous rhetoric to be anti-Semitic to say all lives matter or white lives matter. No, I'm asking. I'm asking an honest question.
Why is saying white lives matter anti-Semitic? That's what you just asked. I'm
not saying that's anti-Semitic.
No, you just said that. Though.
No, and I misspoke. But I'm saying
no, you didn't. That was a forward slip.
And there's some sort of like lemming DNA in white people where when they reach a certain amount of success, they just want to take it off a cliff. And I don't like when Jews get pulled into that, because when I think of my Orthodox Jewish friends and even my Hasidic friends, these people are conservative, Trump-supporting, American patriots. And the Jews that are getting lumped in with this sort of ethno-masochistic cultural suicide tend not really to be Jewish. I call them ginos, Jews in name only. It's liberal elite whites you should have a beef with.
Yeah, but I lump them all in together. That's what I did. That's
good.
That's why the tweet said that, Jewish people.
Okay. But this trait, blacks are overrepresented in violent crime. But when you meet an individual black person, you don't apply that. You start with a fresh slate every time you meet someone. Do you do that with Jews?
Nope.
This intervention isn't going very well.
Right, there we are. Now then, girls, watch this. How's this for double top? He's got me. He got me.
Eddie, what have you done?
Well, it wasn't my fault. There wasn't a light in the kitchen. You can't see him in the dark.
Oh, Barbie, you're going fast.
Oh, Bill, love. Does it hurt very much?
No, only when I laugh.
Oh, Bill.
Sorry, Eddie. I couldn't resist it.
Very funny. Why don't you go outside? Let me try again.
Look, listen, Amanda, the way you play that, you couldn't hit a gorilla if you were dancing with it.
Oh, aye? Can I have the next waltz? Well, I must be off. I've got a most important meeting of the darts committee.
And who's going to help with the decorations?
There's your man. That's what he's here for.
And now we reach December, where no one has really gone to work this month. The ambulance workers, the train drivers, the postman. Basically, anyone who's paid above 25 grand a year has decided, nah, we can't be asked, we need more money. And although unions do have their use, really, the cost of living crisis is affecting everyone. If I chose not to go to work, I'd be fired. Nothing's going to change. They're not going to bend over and give them more money. But really, that's all that's happened in December, and December isn't even finished, so who knows what will happen next. Well, that's it for another year. I hope you all have a lovely Christmas, and thanks to everyone who's bought me a cuppa over the last year. It is always appreciated. So enjoy your time off, enjoy the food, enjoy the drink, and just switch off for a few days, because 2023 should be more exciting, if possible, than this one. Keep warm, keep fed. Ta-ta for now.
Gibbons has often been given to taking a drink before noon, so by 4 o'clock he's exposing his cock and gibbering like a buffoon. Come 8:30, he's in quite a state and really not making much sense.
At chucking out, he's mucking about and breakdancing for 50 pence.
As I remember, one day last December, he'd down around 8 dozen jars.
And despite my pleas, wouldn't hand me his keys and insisted on driving his car.
Because he was plastered, the dozy old buff ignored the onlookers' squeals.
Outside it had snowed, he shot up the road and dragged the child under his wheels.
Oh, Mike, you knocked a kiddie off his bike.
He split his head.
My God, it bled, the snow was white and it went red.
And you were drunk and off you sped.
The doctor said, this kid is dead.
You horrible man, you killed a kid at Christmas.
I suppose I had that stroke of luck with the Argos breathalyzer, didn't I?
Yes, you did. When the judge said,
although Mr. Gibbons, you won't be forgiven for taking the life of a child. Because of a cock-up, you shall not be locked up. Your punishment's going to be mild. The evidence states you were out with your mates, got pissed then attempted to drive. Your foot missed a brake, you gate crashed the wake. Now somebody's child not alive.
Oh, Mike, you knocked a kiddie off his bike.
He split his head.
My God, it bled.
The snow was white and it
turned red. And you were drunk and off you sped.
The doctor said, this kid is dead.
You horrible man, you killed a kid at Christmas.
Now, if Christmas hasn't rinsed you out, you can always buy us a cuppa on Ko-fi. And thank you in advance if you do. And Happy New Year.